All right, so we talked recently about the story. And inside of this, I want to talk about getting clarity with the story that you're telling yourself. Clarity is absolutely one of the most important things. If I went back over the past year and took just an assessment of everybody that has filled out an application, of everybody that's filled out a questionnaire, of everybody that's come and got on a call with me, the number one thing that people are looking for is simply clarity, because they don't understand the situation that they're in. They don't understand, how could this person be this mean? How could this person be so toxic? How could he be so rude, so awful, and not care about me at all? How is that even possible? And I understand, and I get it, because it doesn't fit in your frame of reality. It doesn't fit in what you're believing. It doesn't fit in your view of the world, because you look at the world and you think, hey, well, I'm this way. Why can't he be this way? Well, oftentimes people get confused that just a narcissist is not like you at all. He's a human being. He has feelings and emotions for sure. But as far as how his mind is processing and what's actually happening underneath, not like you at all. So when it comes down to it, he doesn't really care. There's not a level of care and respect that he has for you, which is why he can do the things that he can do. That's why he's entitled to you. That's why he thinks he owns you. There's so many different levels to this. But if we don't get clarity around this situation, you stay confused. And if you stay confused, you just don't make a move. You simply just die with where you are. Like, the version of who you are, how you want to live, how you want to grow, how you want to develop becomes a shell of a person. And you slowly just disintegrate into nothing. So I want you to consider just where you are right now. There is a story that is activated in your head. Now, when I say this, some of you might think really quick, oh, yeah, I know what it is. I believe this. And I'd have you first just consider that's not the story. That's not the true story. That is the surface level, maybe trigger or action that you're believing, but it's not actually the story that's underneath the surface. That's a layer deeper. That's another layer deeper. That's another layer deeper after that. Because ultimately, the story that you're telling yourself comes back to you. Comes back to how you're viewing, defining you, your worth, your value, your reality, the shame and the guilt that are actually impacting you. All of it comes down to you. But if we don't get underneath the surface far enough, you'll start to believe that you have a certain story that is what needs to be worked on. And while it might be, it will not be deep enough to actually do the work required. Oftentimes we'll see this inside of counseling and therapy, where we'll have people that go in and they tell a story of this is what's happening, and the therapist works on that particular story. But oftentimes it's not going deeper to be able to get what is the root cause, what is the piece underneath, what is the story that you believe to believe that story. So consider for a moment, you might have a perception or a perspective about the relationship and about yourself. If you do, write it down. Write down what is actually what you're thinking about yourself and about the relationship. Now, inside of that, I want you to think, what would this be if it was deeper? Or why do I even think that? Or who taught me to think that? Who trained me to believe that lie or to believe that story? And when you start asking yourself these questions, you can get a little bit farther down. You can get a little bit deeper layer into this to be able to figure out, okay, well, this is what I'm actually thinking. This is what's going on underneath the surface. I don't want to admit this, but this is what I am actually seeing. And you keep doing this multiple times so you can hone this down to a singular sentence. It might be short, might be long, but a singular sentence that we're trying to hone it down to figure out what is at the core root. Recently, I was on a call with a client, and one of the things is we were going through these difficult conversations that she was having in the workplace. She's going through a bunch of different conversations. She's like, I'm really uncomfortable having these difficult conversations. And we dove into that. And if I only focused on that, it would have helped a little bit. But what came out of that was a story, and then a story, and then a story, and then a story. And ultimately, we get all the way down, and we realize that a big piece of it goes all the way back to her feeling like an inconvenience to her father, who left. All of this going back to, hey, I'm showing up at work and I'm having a hard time with these difficult conversations and holding people accountable. So I give this example and illustration because I want you to see that this piece of getting to the root cause, this piece of getting farther below the surface is absolutely important. If we only get to the surface level stuff, it's going to work for a period of time, but it's like putting a Band-Aid on a festered wound. Like, it's still not going to fix it. Like, we need some antibiotics. We need to be able to actually heal it. We need to be able to do surgery. We need to be able to change what's actually happening, or else it's just going to keep happening. Oftentimes, we'll put Band-Aids on solutions. Well, that's not true. I just need to believe this. That's great, but it's not going to help you believe it if you don't get to the root cause of why you actually believe it to start off with. This happens in narcissistic abuse because you'll be telling yourself, well, I know he's toxic and I need to leave, so I'll just leave. But you've logicked yourself into it. When you've logicked yourself into it, it's going to be easy to emotionally pull yourself back into the relationship. Maybe you've already seen this inside of the cycles that you had with this guy. You've left him and then you've come back. You've gotten free and then you've come back. You've left him and then he's hoovered you back. He's got back in your life. Why? Because you got to the place that you logicked it. You're like, okay, logically, he's toxic. I shouldn't be with him. I should leave. Gone. And then you hit the emotional withdrawals of being addicted to a toxic guy and you're like, oh, but I didn't know it was going to be this hard. I didn't know I was going to feel this way. I didn't know I was going to have mental, emotional, and physical withdrawals being away from this guy. I have a lot of fear because I don't know who I am. I have a lot of fear about what's going to happen next. I have a lot of fear of the unknown. And as a result, you'll go back to him. Why? Because the emotional and the logic haven't connected. So you might logically know you need to leave, but emotionally, you're still stuck. Emotionally, you'll keep going back over and over and over again. Part of this is the trauma bond. Part of this is the addiction of being with a toxic guy. So I'd have you consider this piece of clarity inside of the realm of freedom is absolutely important. We have to get to a place that we're talking through giving you freedom through clarity by helping identify what is the story that you're believing. The story that you're believing will compel all your actions, will keep you stuck for such a long period of time, will leave you trapped because you think, well, I can't do this. This isn't me. I'm not allowed to do this. It's not okay. It's not acceptable. You will tell yourself so many stories that it will lock you into a prison that will not let you leave and will let you be stuck there permanently. So I want you to consider today, what is the story that you're telling yourself? Write it down. Write down the story that you're telling yourself. And it might be like you're envisioning as a movie or a reel. And you're envisioning it with multiple characters, with you and with him. And so you write down, this is what's going on. He's treating me like this. I feel like this because this is going on because of this. And you start telling yourself, what is the story that I'm actually telling myself about this relationship? Write it down. And then I want you to sit with it and think through, why do I believe this? What is actually underneath this story? What's the thought that's underneath this story? What's the belief that I have to even believe that this story is true? And you continue to dive deeper and deeper to be able to get to the root cause. If we don't get to the root cause, it's still just that Band-Aid effect where you might need surgery, but we're just slapping a Band-Aid on the problem. So we need to get deeper. What is the root cause? Maybe there's something you realize that you've told yourself for such a long period of time, that you're not worthy, that you're not good enough, that you're a bad mom. There's multiple things that are going to come up for you. If it's a statement like that, I want you then to ask the question to yourself, who taught me this lie? Who told me this was true? Who trained me to believe this statement? And see where that leads. Because the more we can get deeper underneath the surface, the more we're able to find the story and actually eradicate it. Once we can eradicate it, then we can start working on the next level of you. But that doesn't happen when you're beat down with a bunch of stories, with a bunch of mindset shifts, with a bunch of emotional manipulation from him that sells you a version of reality that's just not true. If I can help you today in working through the story that you're telling yourself, I want you to go to rawmotivations.com to see a short video there of me and like what I do. Because I want to help you move forward in the healing process. I want to help you grow and develop who you actually are. I want you to move forward in the healing process so that you can find freedom. But this won't happen unless we figure out the story you're telling yourself and help you learn how to rewire it in an effective way.